Excuse me.
All right. I've brought this up a few times on the show in the past, probably half a dozen times. I had a kidney disease back in the day, about 13 years ago, and it was incurable. Doctors told me I'd be dead by the age of 29, which is 5 years ago. And my kidneys were failing much faster. I would probably not have lived to be, past 25 or 26. And the first day I used the sounds that, and my aunt was a practitioner of Sharry Edwards, and that same night I used the sounds, I had drastic results. Drastic. I won't describe them on the radio, especially if you're eating dinner. I don't want to ruin your appetite, but it was drastic. I right away got off the prednisone and felt much healthier, and I continued to use the sounds for a couple more weeks, and by the time I went back to the doctor, the specialist, I had my they did a 24-hour urine sample and blood tests, and my kidneys were 100% healthier, and I was never as healthy as I ever was at that point. So it was huge for me, and I didn't even necessarily believe it. But when you believe you're dying, you'll do anything. Really, you'll do anything that's offered. I did, and that's one of the things I want to bring up, because a lot of people, it just sounds extraordinary that something as simple as sounds can heal. And I mean, even people who understand the science have a hard time grasping the reality of it. So Sharry Edwards, Medical Director of the Institute of Bioacoustic Biology and Sound Health, has decided to provide tools and solutions to create a new paradigm for health, a call to action that will provide the opportunity to take back our power and our health. AT&T has declared that bioacoustics is the medicine of the future. The Duke Encyclopedia of New Medicine has acknowledged Sharry Edwards as the pioneer and leader of this incredible new modality of wellness, bioacoustic biology. So, Sharry, are you with us? Hello.
I am, Jeff. Hello.
Excellent.
Good to be here.
Great. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, Sharry. This is Chris Perkins. Nice
Hi,
to have
Chris.
you on the show tonight.
Yes.
And then we got Mark.
Sharry.
We got Mark lingering in the background.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to hang back and listen. So
Jeff, Chris, and Mark. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I guess that's my first question is, this really, to me, this is the future of medicine. I see this being everywhere and completely replacing all of what we have today, it being in everybody's homes. How do we make people see this as realistic? Because it's not. We're used to the allopathic medicine, the drugs, and then you have a minority of us who are more interested in nutritional alternatives and supplementing. And this is like a whole nother level. This is, it's really hard to get people convinced that this is a great idea and a legitimate solution. So how do we do that? How do we get people to understand that it really can work?
By example, I think, is the best way to do it. We've kind of kept all of this quiet and just in our own little group of what's going on, but it's getting more and more attention. A couple of years ago, we had a doctor come to us who had Tamiflu-resistant bird flu, and we were able to give him the frequency antidotes, and we give those out every year, and his bird flu subsided when no medication they were giving him, nothing would work. And his mother-in-law was one of our practitioners, and finally, when he had this stuff for 6 weeks and his family was sick, he was desperate, like you were with your kidneys, and he finally came to us, and we helped him, and that was it. He was convinced. When it happens to you, but this really is Star Trek medicine. Yeah. You've seen Bones and Beverly, and got this little twirly thing, and it heals a bone. And we already can do that. We just kind of keep it quiet and share it with people who are interested. And I think they are the elite of old medicine. I don't want to call it new medicine or alternative medicine, because I think this is one of the original medicines that people could use, frequency and sound. We've only had prescription around for 100 years or so. Mm-hmm. So this is really where we started. This part's in our soul. And often when people come to our class, they recognize this as God stuff. You know, Jeff's aunt came to one of our classes, I think in 1994. That's how long she's been with us. And she brought knitting and books and all kinds of things. And this class is so intense, and it so gets to your soul. She just sat there and cried through the whole class.
It
was such a relief to her to finally find something that was so expansive and answered so many questions. So we're here to provide tools and solutions. You know, I've often heard people say that people just giving up. They don't want to hear about the bad stuff anymore. They don't want to hear about Ebola or Edward Snowden or Bradley Manning or any of, because they have no solutions. They don't want to hear about Obama and what he's doing. But we have software that we offer to people for free so they can see what's Edward Snowden's intention, what's Obama's intention, what's going on in your life. Right now we're giving away cholesterol software. It's on our site, soundhealthoptions.com, under bonus software, because the drug companies are pushing statins so bad, statin drugs, that kill you one cell at a time. And that's just not me saying that. That's Stephanie Seneff from MIT. That's Hannah Joseph, who wrote the book about statins killing you one step at a time or one cell at a time. There's so much going on in the drug company, and they're so rich you can't stop them. So we thought people don't have any choice. So we can look at people's blood or the vocal print through their blood. I said that backwards. We can look at their blood through their vocal print, and we can see what's wrong with them, why they really have a cholesterol issue. Go to the root of that and fix it nutritionally or with sound if they're in a hurry, or do both.
Okay, when I first heard of this Ebola problem, the first thing I thought was Sherry Edwards. You know, we could there could be a solution with this, obviously. And it's funny because you mentioned my aunt. Kathy was on last Thursday, and she was on for 2 hours. And while there, she mentioned that you might have something in store for Ebola. She mentioned something about offering the sound onto a CD.
We are working on that. I don't know what their progress is, but we did that for bird flu. James Marshall, he's an actor, and he played in A Few Good Men and Gladiators and Twin Peaks. He took Accutane and nearly killed himself because it dissolved his intestines, and they sent him home to die. And he had heard us on Coast to Coast, and he called us up and said, "Can you help me?" And I said, "No, we'll just try." And we were able to help him look at what he should eat or shouldn't eat, and he started getting weight again. He started playing music again, and we had all of these frequencies for this bird flu. We didn't know what to do with them. And he said, "I want to do something for you guys. You have helped me so much. You've given me back my life. What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, we don't have any movies for you to be in. What kind of thing do you do?" So he said he plays guitar and makes background music for movies. So we sent him these frequencies, and he looked at them, and he called me back. He said, "Sherry, this is a bunch of nothing. These won't fit together. I can't do this." I just try, because they're very odd frequencies, and we had already published them. And so he put together a CD, and it's called La Ciel, and it's for bird flu and swine flu, but it also, we found out later, it takes care of bronchitis and nasal things and pneumonia and a lot of other things, inhaling some kind of pathogen. So we're doing that same thing with the Ebola frequencies. And if people want to see those Ebola frequencies, they can go to our site under Ebola Project, the soundhealthoptions.com site, and then go to Ebola Project. It's on the left, and it's a big purple button. And there's 2 press releases there. We probably should get into talking about this. We tried for 11 days to get a press release about this, and that we're giving away the software so people can test themselves. But in all the people who've given us back, we found a lot more information, so we can talk about that because it's exciting. So here we are giving away the software, and the people, PR Web, would not allow us to put out a press release. And Facebook and the other guys, we put certain people's names in it, I guess, that didn't want out there. So finally, they allowed us to get this press release out with 5 paragraphs. One was about the WHO saying we need to find an answer to this. One was about the actual strain. These are new strains, the killer strains. One other thing I can't remember, and I probably should go look at it. But it was a ridiculous press release. But they did let us say, we're gathering data, we're giving away the software for anybody who wants it, and then we snuck in on our site and we put up the press release that they refused to allow anyone to see. So they're both available there. You know, when we started doing this press release and this 11-day journey, they wanted us to have FDA approval that we had cracked the code of Ebola. Right. I said, that's not what this press release says. This press release says we're looking for data, and we will give you this software if you will give us back data and your vocal print. The other big one really explains what's going on. I was trying to look at all of it, but they would not allow us to use the word rife frequency. They wouldn't allow us to use Lynn Horowitz, and I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He wrote AIDS and Ebola in 1996, and he said almost identical what WHO, World Health Organization, is saying, that we need to look for any way to deal with this. It is just so big and so bad and so all-encompassing because nobody can deal with it. Well, we've been dealing with these kinds of frequencies for years, with bird flu and swine flu and herpes and Gardasil and vaccination damage from pathogens, live viruses that they're sticking into us. And so what I thought was coming was the pharmaceutical companies were behind this, and they were going to try to force everybody into the scare tactic, and then Obama's going to come in and say, well, this is all military and you have to get this shot. And so that was kind of my idea of what they were doing, or they're just trying to kill off the population. And so I put that in the article, and they would not publish it. And to me, I was speculating as to what was going on, and they just wouldn't hear of it. People can go get both copies of these. One is in yellow on our site under soundhealthoptions.com. Go to that Ebola project. You can see one of our classrooms there. The yellow press release is on the left, what they would allow us to print. But at least they allowed us to say, we want you to help us gather data. But one of the things I said in this article they wouldn't publish was, is this lack of containment, an inadvertent absence of preparation, a man-made crisis of epic proportions, or as some believe, a financial bonanza by the drug companies to also accomplish a deliberate culling of useless eaters?
Right.
They had an absolute fit over that. But we've been giving away this Ebola software. It's on our site. I don't know if you can directly download it. I'd have to go check. Oh, yes, there's a thing that says sign up. We had a class today on this. We've had 2 classes so far where we're gathering data. We had one, today was on PTSD. But if your audience wants, we'll have another Ebola workshop just for them if they'll agree to spread the word, help us give away the program, help us get data. We have found what's really going on with Ebola. And I guess you're the first show we're going to release it on. We're not quite prepared, but if people could bear with me, I could let them know what's happening.
Please.
Yeah, please.
When we look at a gene or a protein and decode it by its frequency, the gene has to get in the body somehow. And there's a big argument. Is this just bodily fluids? Is this airborne? You don't know, because I don't think any of them are telling us the truth. Maybe they just don't know. But it has to get into the body somehow. Like if you are exposed to measles, somebody coughs on you or you whatever, and you breathe it in, the gene, the critter, the pathogen, the alive thing gets in your body and begins to set up housekeeping. And it's their poop, whatever their end product is of their housekeeping, that's the protein that makes you sick. So we decoded all of this, and there was 3 genes and 9 strains that were killer strains. And we happened to notice that the frequency for this beginning strain here of these killer genes was the same as hemophilia. Now, that's a bleeder's disease. Now, with hemorrhagic fever, bleeding, it was kidneys, it was liver. So we began to decode these strains, and we thought, let's go look at what makes a hemophiliac bleed. And we found out there's a coagulating factor 8. And we went on the internet and found anybody that was dealing with Ebola, that was a director of Ebola. And you'll love this one, Jeff. Many of them had nanosilver in their voice.
Oh, yeah. Like high amounts of it, right.
Yes. And so we had Dr. Kent Brantley. He's the one that got over it and came back and had the Z-MAP and all that medication and stuff, and he got well, and we tested his voice. And in his voice was the frequencies that we predicted. And we thought, well, that's just one. Let's look at a couple of other people. So we looked at other people who shortly after the video had gotten Ebola. Another Dr. Pooley and another guy named Dennis that was the head of some Ebola project someplace. So we're looking at their vocal prints, and sure enough, there's the frequencies, and we can even see the architecture. We stick a microphone in somebody's face and we say, give us a vocal print of 30 seconds, and then we have special programs, and those are free too for people if they want them. And we have free videos to teach you how to use it. And we looked at this architecture, and there was a poison, and we know what that poison looks like. And there was one frequency that was continuously cropping up in people's voices. Well, there's several frequencies, but one very consistent, and it was this coagulating factor 8. So that's, we think, is the crux of all of this. And if we can give people the antidote for that, and it's in these articles, the frequencies are listed there. In the red article in particular, they're listed by frequency antidotes for anybody who has a Rife machine. Now, one of the things we work with is analog sound. But Rife machines are digital, but they're good for killing pathogens. What they do is begin to look at the pathogen, vibrate the cloak off of the pathogen so the killer cell can come and devour it. Because people have this leftover protein and the pathogens hide. So those are all published for people. We'll give them the software, and if they'll help us collect data with all of this.
Okay.
But go ahead.
So if these sounds, you mentioned they're working on making it available on CD. If that happens, would it also be available for download? Because I could see this sound going out to everyone, and I just envision people going to hospitals if there really is an outbreak and just playing the sounds over speakers.
If it's up to me, I'll give it away. But there are people out there working hard on this in many long hours.
Right.
We worked almost 2.5 weeks putting this software together, and we're not charging anything for it.
I'll tell you what, though, if that were to happen, and people who were sick, because if this does become a serious outbreak, epidemic, and all of a sudden these sounds were what were bringing people back, that's going to bring a lot of attention to the technology.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be in itself huge.
And you know as well as I do that'll put the FDA on my door.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good fellow.
Man. Right. It has to be countered. I mean, Ralph's got his lawsuit coming up. He wants to sue the FDA for freedom of speech and the First Amendment and for the Ebola cure and everything. But that, I fear, is going to take too long and much longer than all this will take for it to spread as far as Ebola goes. So that's just going to,
I want it to be there. I want them to be able to look at the Ebola software and see if they've been exposed. We have charts that they can look at and see how they can look at this nutritionally. Excuse me. But if they will help us gather data, and that's how we put it out, help us gather data, not that this is a cure or anything else. And I think that's the only way we got past the media, because I think it's all controlled by the government. Right. I look at what's going on here and think, if this is deliberately man-made, there had to be a cure. Right. And when you look at that one article, it tells you what's really going on. I'm going to have to back up and talk about that a minute. When we began looking at all of these swine flus, and every year these frequency sets that we put out got more and more peculiar, because they usually send out 3 or 4 different kinds of flu every year. But there's so much I want to share. So as we put out these frequencies, we begin to notice year after year that the antidote for this frequency was the activator for another one. And I started looking at this, and I looked at the natural things like a cold or whatever. Nature doesn't put the math together that way, and at least not significantly and not over a long period of time. I think a lot of these are man-made.
Right.
And so I began to look at them. Even with the swine flu, you can see that, okay, this strain's antidote is the next strain's activator. And that doesn't happen. And it really doesn't happen that here comes a flu that is the identical frequency to 3 decimal points of hemophiliac gene. That doesn't happen. And they have very common effects, symptoms. They bleed internally, bleed to death. So I wrote, this is why I think this is a problem. And I don't know if they wouldn't publish it because of that. But as we look at all of these frequencies together and we begin to give them the frequency to people, we have to be more and more creative of how we provide this back. And yes, Jeff, I agree with you. Let's try it. And we said to Sierra Leone and several other countries, we'll give you this project. We'll give you all of it. We'll teach you how to do it. We'll come and train all your people. And it became such a corrupt mess of people wanting paid to give away something that we created for free, and then they were trying to sell this to people, and it's our product and it's for free. So these people in these other countries, and I'm not saying all of them, I don't want to get sued, but a lot of them are just trying to make a buck here on somebody else's downfall. Right. And whoever controls health, whoever, I don't want to say control, whoever has dominion over your health has dominion over your quality of life. And that's why I want to give it away.
And you mentioned about, the FDA and everything, and it's really a shame because with this whole DSHEA thing that was created in 1994, it forces people to lie about what we are not allowed to tell people if it actually cures or not, and that's just it's a restriction on the First Amendment where it matters the most, our health. Our health is the most important thing, and it's.
If we put this CD, we're going to say this is for the stress of Ebola. Mm-hmm. When we put out a little back box that helps get rid of back pain, I can't say that. We had to put it out as relieves the stress of back pain. Now, it's a biofeedback device at this point, and in recent years, the FDA has come down and said you really don't have to put any biofeedback device through the FDA. But when we're trying to publish this, and they say to us, right, we have to have FDA approval, and they wanted a reference for a reference, and they were saying, we need a reference from this company to say they're really giving this away. And I said, I'm the author. I created this. I created this idea. This is my company. And they said, well, do you have any publicity that says this? I said, I'm trying. You're it. I'm trying.
Oh.
It was just crazy what they were doing. But I don't think they want a cure, because you look at what they're doing, serving people who think they can help even a little bit. They're serving this with, you will cease and desist. But there are some nutballs out there who are trying to make a lot of money on this by saying, oh, well, this will cure it, or, oh, well, melatonin was one of them, and hydrogen peroxide was one of them, and catalase was one of them, and dandelion wine was one of them. And here, buy it from me. Buy it from me.
Right. It's ridiculous. It is. It's sad when you see that. It's, if you really want to help people and get the word out there, you know, people are extremely skeptical when it comes to making a book, and I don't blame them. But there's so many. I just don't agree with that method. Exactly. When profit when it seems that profit is the main motive, it's just sad. No one's going to take them seriously in that case. And
look at what happened with Rima. She sent all of this stuff for free, and they charged her an arm and a leg, and then they stopped it in France and sent it back to New York, and just because it was nanosilver, and somebody from Sierra Leone had to come and pick it up personally and take it. That's how much the government is looking at this. Think about this concept. There are companies out here who are really trying to help and trying to do the right thing, and they're the ones that get slapped and no profit and gouged, and we have been audited more times than I can remember, and now I withhold stuff, so every time they audit me, they have to pay me, so I think they've stopped. But on the other side of that, there's profit. And the government used to be out there for let's help the people, let's support the people. Now the government is for their own pocket, so they can put the money in the pocket of their friends. Look at Solyndra. Look at all the things going to a Canadian company to develop ZMapp for Ebola. Look at a Canadian company that got the contract for doing this $2 billion Obama health care. Look at all the contracts that went to the Chinese for all of the bridges.
Right.
They're putting the money in their friends' pockets. Solyndra, what'd that last? A year and a half, and they all jumped out with $1 billion parachutes and on our dime, on our backs. Have you read? I think it's called Animal World.
Oh, no, I don't believe I have.
That doesn't sound quite right, but it was a political thing about the chickens and pigs and horses all got together.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Animal Farm.
Animal Farm.
Oh, Animal Farm.
Yeah.
It was a movie too, but I'm talking about the book.
Yeah.
But all these animals got together and say, "Hey, you're taking my eggs, and I can't have any children, and you aren't feeding me enough, and I'm starving." And they ran the farmer off, and they elected the pigs to be their leaders then. And so the pigs moved into the farmer's house and then began to wear the farmer's clothes, then began to take advantage of the animals.
It's funny that you mentioned animals, because I actually wanted to ask you, and I've been wanting to know this for years, can this actually be used on animals? Because if I were to take my cat, for instance, and have him meow, and then if I were to loop that meow sound, say for 30 or 45 seconds, could that be used to find out what's wrong with him and to give sounds back?
We've done it plenty of times.
Wow, that's awesome.
And even with animals that don't talk, if people will send me a picture of the animal, I usually get the sound from them. I need it in their face to see their essence in their eyes. But we've done horses, rabbits, turtles. A lot of the times the vet just doesn't know what's wrong, and usually it's some internal thing like diabetes or kidney issue, like when you're talking about a cat. Even in your voice, kidney issues come up again that I can hear. But you're easy to read, and not everybody is.
Right. So me and my cousin have been having this debate for years, and my aunt will say, and my aunt tries to be pessimistic to play down the I don't know how to word it, but she'll claim that the sound doesn't work for everybody. And my argument was, well, the people who it's not working for, they give up on it, or they're getting the wrong sounds and they need to try it again. Shouldn't this be able? I mean, does it not work for certain people? Are some people just never going to be able to benefit from this?
Boy, I wish I could answer that straight. We've had people come to our door, like a woman who stuck a curling iron in her eye. I sent her to the hospital because she burnt her eyeball. Snake bite, I would send to the hospital because I'm not sure. We've never done it. We've done it with bee stings and things like that, but not with rattlesnake bites and that kind of thing. But if people use the sounds and somebody has prepared the sounds correctly, there is almost always an effect.
Okay.
More mobility, lack of pain, diseases go away, nerves regenerate. There are so many videos on YouTube about what we do.
I've seen quite a few of them. I mean, people who are paralyzed getting up and walking again, people who have very, very, very low IQ. That one video, I remember I've seen that quite a few times. Would it also work for something like you said bacteria, and what about for parasites like intestinal parasites, stuff like that?
Flukes and yes, things like that we've worked with, but a lot of the times those people just don't have enough sulfur. So we begin feeding them sulfur, but there is a die-off too of the critters.
Right.
So we try to use nutrition with sound, but there's some places you can only use sound. Like you can't go to the store and buy a hormone receptor. You can't go to the store and buy a lot of things that we can prepare through sound. Just had a lady in today with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she had Catalase in stress, and you can go buy Catalase at the grocery store, and it's in dandelion tea and it's in fresh apples. Okay, that's one piece. But she also had a receptor that was very closed. So you can't go buy something on the counter to open that receptor to, I think it was her tyrosine. Something about her thyroid wasn't working well, and that's the energy of the body. And I can't remember all of what it was. I don't have it right here in front of me. But there was things that we had to do with sound, things that she could do by exercising muscles, because the body is so redundant. You've seen kids that are challenged and they'll be pulling on their fingers.
Right.
Like the frequencies for those two front fingers, the index and the next one, are the same frequency as neurotransmitters. So they're stimulating that through exercising the fingers.
How about that?
The body's just incredibly redundant, and that's what we teach to our professional classes. We have classes from free, a couple of hours, all the way up to a week professional class that would allow you to work with a doctor and look at the diagnosis of what was going on with somebody. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that either.
No, I mean, probably not. My aunt said that the classes are extremely hard. Excuse me, and but I still tell her someday I want to take the whole course and become a practitioner, hopefully. And
you call her up right now and ask her if she meant hard.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
They're a bit complicated if you don't like math, but we've got it all computerized. When she learned it in 94 and 95, we had to do it all by hand. It's all computerized now.
Okay, good. That's very good to hear. Good. I mean, I didn't do too well in what the harder math courses. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name is. the trigonometry and the other one, calculus.
No, don't need that.
Okay, good.
Add, subtract, multiply, divide, square root,
Excellent. Then
we've created it all for you to make it easy. We're continuously working with programs to make it even more easy, but I still like for people to get all the background so that they can see where we're coming from, even though the computer will give you an answer.
Okay,
sure.
Chris has a question. I've had these questions for years, so I've had to ask them. Okay, Chris, your turn. Sorry.
Yeah, something that I was wondering about. What about like for muscle and joint disorders, or something like fibromyalgia, or even like something like cerebral palsy?
We've done cerebral palsy. It's a note of G. It's usually something called COMT, which is muscle signaling. We have 2 tone boxes for fibromyalgia. We did a 5-year project. We're finding that it's an overdose of some kind of medication or drugs that the body doesn't know what to do with, too much iron, or they don't have enough pyruvic acid and oxygen to get rid of the lactic acid. And there's a video. And we were on a show. Well, I was doing a workshop at the University of Cincinnati Hospital, and in the audience was a film crew from Dayton. And I said, we've gotten rid of fibromyalgia in less than a half hour. So they challenged me on the air with somebody I didn't know. And she said she had like a level 9 out of 10 pain with fibromyalgia that had started 16 years ago. And on the air, we reduced her to a 4. And then within 4 or 5 minutes after getting off the air, she could run up and down steps. But we were able to identify the medication. And this is all on video on our site and on YouTube. We were able to identify the drug, and it was Pitocin, which is what they gave her to initiate her labor of her twins 16 years ago. So we detoxed the Pitocin out of her system, and she doesn't have to use the sound or pain pills anymore.
You met, I believe his name was Richard Nash, the guy who played on
John Nash.
John Nash. From anything about him, he seemed like an interesting person. I mean,
well, he was very depressed, his serotonin levels. But we were at a dinner. It was not really like I was there evaluating him. We were receiving a humanitarian medicine award together at Temple University. So former lady Betty Ford, former First Lady, she was there and got up for her work with addictions. Bill Tiller was there for his work with atoms and sounds and frequencies, and me, and then John Nash for allowing his story to be told.
Okay. All right. I mean, I saw the picture. I was like, that guy looks familiar. Okay, that's okay. I mean, because it was an awesome movie. It was like one of my favorites at the time. I mean, it was wonderful.
True story.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean, and I'm sure most of our guests have seen that movie. It was called A Beautiful Mind.
Yes.
And what was his face played it?
Jim Carrey?
No, not Jim Carrey. You know
Russell
who that guy
Crowe?
is. Russell Crowe. There you go. No, not.
Yep.
Is that his name?
I can't remember. I can't remember who it was. Somebody look it up on the internet.
I believe it was. The guy who played Gladiator. Yeah, Russell Crowe. That's it. You're right.
One of the things that's related to that we just did was a big project on PTSD for the returning soldiers, because I also think the government's not doing right by them. And we found 8 things that deal with PTSD that are nutrients, but we found that the multiple vaccinations that they're giving them ruins their ability to use their adrenals and their corticotropin, and that's what's causing depression. And we're working on a project furiously now to decode all of those vaccines, and there are hundreds of them, and they just jab them 4 and 5 at a time, and more every day. So we're trying to decode that and write an article on this the relationship. This is why they're all coming back now and committing suicide at 2 and 3 a day, which is more than what's killed over in the war are coming back and committing suicide. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care. The more of them that come back here and commit suicide, less likely that they're going to fight against them when the people take up arms.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Hey,
this is truth.
Did you see that 3D printer that creates guns?
The 3D,
the
printer, yeah.
That is awesome. We don't have to be afraid of the government taking guns anymore.
Right.
I got to tell you the story. It's crazy. I went to the doctor the other day because my doctor dropped dead, and I was interviewing her about being part of our project, and she said, "Well, just let me ask you questions." And she said, "Do you have a gun? Do you have ammunition? How much do you have?" I said, wait. You would ask our people this? They're not going to tell you the truth. She said, "I'm required by the government." She asked me, am I sexually active? With what kind of partners? Same sex? Things that wouldn't have, that none of her business. And I wouldn't have our people ask it. What kind of car I drive? Did I drive it here myself?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a health question.
It's like she's trying to date you.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. But she showed me these are Obamacare questionnaires that they are required to ask. I said, how can they justify that they're asking if you have a gun? And Obamacare people justified it by, well, if you're depressed, they can send the police after your gun.
Right. Oh, yeah. One of their new measures of gun control that they think they can get away with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there's going to be less people to pick up arms and go after them. But now with this 3D printer, I love it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I definitely want one of those. You mentioned something about cerebral palsy earlier. Any idea what causes that? Or
a lot of times it's a birth defect from the actual birth, that they tear or rip or do something. It can be genetic. I'd have to look it up to see all the pieces. We did that project probably 10 or 11 years ago, so I'm not sure. Our present projects we've done PTSD, Ebola, Parkinson's, which is totally misdiagnosed. We're doing some on cancer, circulation, leukemias, neuroplasticity, get your brain in good shape. Ultimate Diet. We have over 100 softwares that we rotate and give away to people if they want to take our courses and give us back data.